Okay guys, today I want to teach you about rounding. The question we should be able to answer at the end of this is, what is rounding? So rounding is basically determining whether we are closer to one set of numbers or closer to another set of numbers. We have 10 digits, as I've told you in the past, in our number system. So rounding is basically saying, are we closer to the number that is here, or are we closer to the number that comes right after the 9? Now, to give you an example, let's say we're looking at 30 to 39, our 10 digits being 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the number that tells us how to decide, are we closer to the number 30, or do we round up to 40? Now, there's a nice little device, a little mnemonic device that helps us remember things. I'm sure all of you probably have heard this, especially if you've been a Marla student your whole life. 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 or less, let it rest. And what that means is, we're only ever looking at one digit, and that tells us what to do. 5 or above means if the digit, the next lowest place value, which I'll get into in a minute, is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then we round up because we're closer, whether this was 35, 350, 3,500. If we're looking at this, we're closer to this value. Now, 4 or less means that when we're looking at these, if we have a 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, then we stay at 30. We're closer to the number 30. So everything 34 or less is closer to 30. Everything 35 or greater is closer to 40. And an easy way to remember it is the lower 5 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, starting with 0, we always round down or remain with the number that we had. 5 higher digits, we round up. Now let's look at the 3 situations that you will run into. This is my first example. We are going to round to the nearest thousand. So there are a series of steps you take. The first one, I went ahead and wrote the thousands place in a different color so that it would be easier to look at. But the first step is to underline the place value that you're rounding to. So remember, always start with your ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000. So we know this is our place value. The second step is to circle the next lowest place value. Now, this is where you have to remember that trick. 5 and above, give it a shove, 4 or less, let it rest. Because this is the digit that will tell us what to do. However, before we actually make that decision, we circled that next lowest place value, so we are going to make all of the numbers from there below till the lowest place value becomes zeros. We'll call this the boss. The boss is the decision maker. So this 2 is 4 or less. So what that tells me to do here is add nothing. I leave it alone. However, I want you to create this habit, and on the third example, you'll see why. I want you to just either write plus 0 or plus 1. Now, 6 plus 0 is 6. And the final step is to take higher place values and bring them down without changing. So, 456,270 is closer to 456,000 than it is to 457,000. Now let's look at a different example. This we're going to round to the nearest 10,000. So remember the steps. Underline the place value that you're rounding to. Circle the next lowest place value, and because that's a circle, it should help you remember to make everything else circles or zeros. all of these lower place values become zeros. Now this boss here, the number that tells me what to do, is 5 or above. It's a 6. Because it's greater than 4, it's 5 or above, I add 1. I round up. 5 plus 1 is 6. And then we bring down higher place values. So in this case, 456,270 is closer to 460,000 than it is to 450,000. Now this last example is the most complex one because there's sort of a little bit of regrouping. Rounding to the nearest 1,000 with regrouping. Now, we're going to change that because I shouldn't say 1,000. I made these late last night. I should have said 100. Alright. We're rounding to the nearest 100. Now, ones, tens, hundreds, remember, underline the value that you're rounding to. You know what? I am rounding to the nearest 1,000. I simply, I'm going to get a red marker. Pause. Okay, we're going to fix this. And I don't mind doing this. We'll just leave this. We'll make this a 3. I am, in fact, rounding to the nearest 1,000. And I can't make that a 3. I have to think this through, my friends. So you're going to watch me think here. Okay. That is what I need to do. Okay. Sorry about that, but part of the learning process sometimes happens with teachers too. Alright, rounding to the nearest, let's fix this again, the nearest 1,000 with regrouping. I will go ahead and underline the value that I'm rounding to, the thousands place. I will circle the next lowest place value. Just remember these steps. Underline, circle, change to zeros. And now, this is the part where you make the decision. But watch what happens on this example. This is 5 or above. It tells me to round up. Now, I told you I want you to get in that habit of saying +1 or +0. This means +1. But what you'll notice here is that 9 plus 1, well, that's 10. And I cannot put 2 digits here. So what happens is, I put the 0 just like an addition problem, and I regroup. And 5 plus 1 is 6, meaning that 459,936 is closer to 460,000 than it is to 450,000. This doesn't happen very often, but you will see this from time to time. If you create this habit right here, you won't have any problems solving it. Now, we're going to go back through the key steps. Underline the place you are rounding your number to. So pick that place. Circle the next keyword here. Next lowest place. That was what we called the boss. Change that place and all lower places to zeros. Use the boss to decide if you add 1 or add 0. Remember, create that habit. And then lastly, bring down all the higher place values without changing them at all. And I've set up a couple different situations for you for your turn. These 3 numbers here you will round to the nearest 1,000. These 3 numbers round to the nearest 10,000. And don't forget, in your math journal, you have those steps glued in. You could use that, or you can always rewind the video and watch it again.